This week I learned it doesn't matter how long you do this whole content creation thing, you're always going to run into technical errors. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. Man, we're already zipping through September, about halfway point already. I didn't know it until I just looked at the date, but a fun week on the channel. Had some interesting things that kind of put me behind schedule, some things that I kind of said, hey, it's a good thing I already had that in the can because I can kind of just move it forward. But hey, that's the way with content creation. But let's go ahead and talk about what am I reading. I did finish the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. One of the most original titles, I think, that I have ever heard. Now, this is one I meant to actually kind of do at the end of the month because I thought it could be like a lead-in into spooky season, like kind of a soft start, or whatever you want to call it. With this is I think that I don't want to say it's burnout or hangover from the darkness that comes before when it comes to fantasy. I think more of what it was just I'm still so wrapped up in that world, handing me another fantasy series, which I'll talk about in a second, where I got to learn all these new characters. And my brain was like, hey, you just did this. Can you slow down? That's why I try not to do several new series all at once. But if I had known how much I was going to love The Darkness Comes Before, I would have scheduled the next ones right after it instead of trying another new fantasy book. But here is where we are. So I just say, okay, you know what? Let's take a break from that for a second. Do this horror book because, there's usually small cast. There's usually not a lot to learn there. And I was pretty happy with the book. Now, look, with Grady Hendrix, I loved My Best Friend's Exorcism. That was one of my favorite books of last year. This one didn't quite reach those heights. I think what I liked about My Best Friend's Exorcism is it's kind of fun. It was nostalgia, but it had fun in it. But it had those moments that when they did matter, they hit pretty hard. I think that was something that he did very, very well. This one, it just seemed almost like it was just so self-serious. And it is. You're dealing with someone that is obviously not human that's terrorizing this neighborhood, and no one will listen to this lady. But I understand that part of it. That is a very serious subject matter. But it was just like, I don't know. I guess that was my fault. I went to it just thinking he was kind of that, hey, let's have fun. Let's do a little bit of a wacky humor in our horror sometimes. Also, if you're going to kind of make it take place in the 90s, I expect a lot more nostalgia like you would have got with My Best Friend's Exorcism being in the 80s. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily make it a bad book. These are things that I assumed. What I didn't like about it was it's clear he has an axe to grind on a particular issue, and he kind of goes back to it too many times. Now, I think there's a place for this, obviously, guys. I'm a Stephen King reader. I've read Larry Correia. I understand that people have axes to grind, and it's okay to do that in your stories sometimes. It's when you keep going back to it and it starts to feel forced or heavy-handed or okay. Now it's starting to feel like you're preaching at me a little bit. I think there is a little bit in this book. Doesn't ruin it. Don't get me wrong. But that was kind of like, I'm really enjoying this setup, this ambiance you set up. I want to know more about all these other ladies in the book club, and all you keep doing is going back to this one thing. And it just kind of felt forced at times. However, story was very good. It was very, very tense, very uncomfortable, guys. And I say at this age with horror, it can't really scare you, but it can make you uncomfortable, and that's how you succeed. Yes, there are several times in this book where one where I even mentioned there's a part with a cockroach where I was about to throw up because it was disgusting. And it's like with all horror, guys, it's not going to be for everybody because there is some very, very uncomfortable subject matter in it. And there are some stuff that's described very, very explicitly, and it's going to turn some people off. So if you aren't a veteran of horror, I don't know if I would recommend the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I want to get that name wrong every time. I don't know if I'd recommend it to you if you're easily bothered by some subject matter. But I do think it has a good positive message. And, it's one of those where I feel like I was expecting a little bit of a twist at the end, and it didn't happen. But I also think maybe he was leaving it open to a sequel. I'm not really sure. But with this, I'll read more Grady Hendrix, without a doubt. I've liked 2 of his books so far. This would be a recommend based off those things I talked about. I do hope he just tries to stay a little more focused this time, because it was clear that there was a particular social issue that was really, really bothering him with this one, and he couldn't stop bringing it up. And I say that as someone who grew up with a single mom. I have a lot of the same things that I agree with, So it isn't me saying, oh, he talked about this thing I didn't like. That's not the kind of guy I am. Lots of authors talk about stuff that I disagree with. Doesn't change how I feel about their books. With me, it's like, hey, let's stay focused on the story because you've got a really good setup here. Let's just kind of stick to that. And I think he does that for the most part here to mixed results, but a mixed to positive for sure. Now, the fantasy book I was talking about, this, of course, is Blood Song by Anthony Ryan, about 100 pages in. And I tweeted the other day, I said, this book has gotten universal acclaim. And I was like, it's kind of a snooze fest at the beginning. I'm like, I hope it does pick up because I don't want to be the one pariah out there. It's like, I don't get the hype on this. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think I'm just probably overly exhausted with young person goes to a magic school or a warrior school, turns out to be better than everyone else. I'm just kind of over that. Look, I've said before that with this genre, I like tropes. I'm okay with them, but maybe I'm exhausted with that one. I mean, the only thing it could have been different is if it had been a farm boy leaving home. You know, I think these are the things that you come to expect with the genre, and again, you can be fine with them. And I'm sure that the book will take a turn and do its own original thing. Too many people love it for it not to do that. But I was just saying that was probably why I struggled at the beginning, because it didn't feel like something I hadn't read before, you know? And then it also felt like it had a big case of Name of the Wind envy, because it does feel like it starts off exactly almost like Name of the Wind. Here, I'm going to recount my life story for you. And again, Patrick Rothfuss didn't create that little subgenre. He didn't create that way of telling a story. I understand this, but this is similar timing where I'm like, okay, well, it's clear to see what your influence was. But in the end, I'm sure I'm going to end up liking the book overall. It is starting to pick up. Like I said, I'm about like chapter 5 right now. It is starting to pick up a little bit. It's just, you know, at the beginning, it was like, okay, gosh, this is starting to feel like there's parts of Realm of the Elderlings where we're just tracking through the snow for 100 pages. And I'm like, what are we even doing right now? So with all fantasy, I feel like you are going to have the slow setup, try to get you into that world. And I'm okay with that. I do think that, like I said, I'm just just still in that world that Baker created with Prince of Nothing, that maybe that's affecting how I'm reading this right now. And that can happen to all of us, guys. You know, I don't think I'm special. I think that can happen to everybody. And I think that's kind of affecting how I feel right now. But I am going to get back on that very, very soon. That leads me, what am I going to read? This is going to be my goal this week, is to knock this one out and kind of clear the decks, because after that, the only thing I have left is a canticle for Leibowitz. Now, I did have Christopher Rocchio here the other day, and he just carried on and gushed about a canticle for Leibowitz in that discussion that we had. And it's very exciting that I'm going to be reading that here for the very first time. Ever since I talked about my favorite dystopian or post-apocalyptic books, like the number one comment in that video was, where is a canticle for Leibowitz? And I was like, well, it is still on my TBR, but not for much longer. So I'm glad I'm going to get the opportunity to do that here very, very soon. And then it's time to start thinking about them spooky season reads, because that will be the last book that I had on my schedule for the month of September. Did get a nice little jump on it here. Didn't have any real clunkers. I mean, if you want to call this a clunker, I think for fantasy fans, something that's 572 pages, it's not exactly a clunker or chonker or whatever words that I've been using lately. Someone told me they'd never heard the word chonker, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, looking ahead to those spooky season reads, I might end up starting one before the month of October. And like I said, that's why I'd wanted to have Grady Hendrix at the end of the month. But hey, best laid plans rarely go the way that you do plan. Let's talk about this week on the channel. Did have some technical errors, so I had to kind of flip things around. I did have Christopher Rocchio in town. He was here for the book signing in the Woodlands, which is right down the street from me. And so when I had him here, I was like, well, I'd be remiss to have him here and not put something on camera. So we just had a quick little discussion. And I didn't want to put that at the, right back to back with where I had the discussion with him and Ryan. I wanted to kind of separate the content so it didn't seem redundant. So I said, hey, I'm going to put out this one of these 5-star chonkers. Now, these are like huge books that I do love, because I done the Are You Tired of Big Books video, and I want to make the kind of the counterpart to it. If you are not tired of some big books, here are my favorites. And I ended up having to record that twice, because the first time I recorded it, I went back to it and listened to it, and I had the same problem. If you guys don't know, after I got hacked, I got a new computer. I got a laptop because I thought the laptop would help me better with live streaming, being able to do it wherever I want. And I started recording my audio on my laptop because I don't connect it directly to my microphone. Anyways, for whatever reason, every time I disconnect it and I reconnect the USB, I have to go into Audacity and select the recording device back to my Yeti Blue microphone. It just keeps wanting to record it from the laptop, and I'm not used to that. It doesn't do that on my PC. It always defaults to my Yeti. Now I'm sure there's a setting I'm just not clicking right or something like that. But I tried to work through it, and it's like I sounded like if you were in a public bathroom and I was 3 stalls over asking you to give me a courtesy flush. That's what it sounded like. I was like, I can't in good conscience, a video that I know that people are going to be interested in watching, I can't in good conscience, if that's their first exposure to the channel and my audio sounds like that, they're not going to want to come back. They're not going to want to hit subscribe, So I said, you know what, I'm just going to record it again. So that's why I flipped it. I put the conversation with Christopher, which was a lot of fun. And you guys seem to enjoy that as well. It's just, I know a lot of people were upset that the conversation that I had with Ryan and Christopher, that Christopher didn't talk as much as Ryan and I did. Well, I'm going to make sure that I gave Christopher the floor, let him talk for as much as he liked there. We talked about his love for Gene Wolfe. We talked about how much he loves A Canticle for Leibowitz and many, many other things that some of the questions that I did ask him as a moderator for him at these 2 signings. There were 3 signings that I went to. Now that they were really good questions, so I wanted to make sure I got them on camera here because we didn't record any of those events for you guys. But that and the Chonkers was really, really well received. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the Chonkers because I think as fantasy fans, we just kind of gravitate towards a good doorstopper of a book, right? So I want to talk about like my favorites on there. And the funniest comment I got in there was someone told me it was criminal not to put Shogun on the list when it was the very first book I listed. So I don't know if that was trolling somebody just having a good time or what, but it did make me laugh. So just know that. And it wasn't on my channel, but over on Philip's channel. We got Philip to do a live stream finally. And this was for our second story in the ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 book series that we're doing. And that's just like our book club, me and Philip and Brian over at BellTube and John from Talking Story. And our book this month was Ordinary Grace by William Crent Kruger. And we kind of did like 15 minutes of non-spoiler stuff. We announced our ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 book for the 4th quarter of the year. So if you missed that, check out that video. And then we talked spoilers for Ordinary Grace, which all 4 of us just adored. We thought it was brilliant. Yeah, it was a really, really awesome book. And you guys are right. You guys told me there was 0 chance I wasn't going to like that one. I think you got me. You got a good coming-of-age story. Set in a small town, that's something that I'm always going to be there for. And we talked about it for quite a while over there. How about some next week plans, guys? I do have this video idea I've been kind of noodling. Don't exactly know what it's going to be. I've had a lot of people that don't read or collect books as much as I do, like some real life friends and stuff. They're like, what is this deal with buying these special edition books that you already own? Why are you doing this? And really just what is the cause of the rise in popularity of special edition books? Think about something like the Broken Binding, something like the Folio Society, where, yeah, the same words are inside. It just looks really, really pretty. Is that really worth the up fee? And I'm going to say, hey, yes, there is. I'm going to talk about why. Why has this become so popular? So I don't really know a name for that or anything, but I'm going to talk about why are special edition books getting so popular. I plan on also to do my Into the Multiverse for Black House. That is book 2 in, I guess the sequel rather, it's just Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. Book I was kind of mixed on. I'm going to kind of talk about why. But as all things Stephen King, we were going to be doing Into the Multiverse as I continue to read them. I got a couple more before I go back to the tower and finish that off. And I got so many people asking, when are you going to finish that tier list? I told you at the end of video 3 it was going to be probably a couple of years. So sorry if you've been waiting for that, but I don't think it would be right to rank some of those books that I haven't read since I was a teenager without revisiting them first. And over on, gosh, I'm not sure whose channel. I think it might be John's at Talking Story. I'm not sure, but we've been talking about the Bound the Broken series, and we've done one already for is it a Blood and Fire? Because I said Fire and Blood actually when I was moderating the thing. But a Blood and Fire, we already did a spoiler talk for that one, and we did a spoiler talk for Of Darkness and Light. And I was upset that they hadn't read The Exile yet. And I was like, we're just going to completely skip over The Exile, which is a novella, but it has so much stuff, and it really gives the backstory to my favorite character in the series, Dana Terry. So we are going to have a quick little get-together, the 4 of us. That is myself, Philip, John Talk Story, and Christopher Navo are going to get together, and we're going to talk about The Exile on one of their channels next week. I'm not quite sure. I believe it is John's. And that's really all I've got going on for this week and next, guys. There are a couple of TV and movie talk things before I go here. It was really, really weird to me that they were doing a new adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot, and then it just kind of, it fell off the release schedule, and it's just been kind of in the can for 2 years, and now it just popped up yesterday, a trailer. Hey, it's coming out October, direct to HBO Max. I was like, okay, well, that's cool, I guess. I don't have to go to the theater, but it was just like that. What happened here? What is the story behind this? King is obviously given his seal of approval on it, but look, I tell people, don't take that into account. Stephen King says every adaptation is great because he's got dragged after he has said Stanley Kubrick's The Shining wasn't the best because it wasn't like the book. And he's gotten dragged for that for 40 years. So now every single adaptation, be it The Dark Tower, be it Pet Sematary 2019, he says it's great, it's scary, it's fantastic, check it out. Because I just feel like he just feels like he has to say that at this point because he's not going to risk getting dragged again over something like that. So everybody telling me, oh, well, King's given his seal of approval to it. He always does. But there's a trailer that looks okay. It looks better than I expected, really. Again, I just assumed when it went hidden for 2 years, there was something wrong with it, or it just didn't turn out that good, or they just they couldn't get an R rating without cutting out certain things. I'm not really sure what the holdup was. No one really seems to have any answers. My only real complaint about the trailer is the actor they cast as Ben just looks all wrong. All wrong. All the other castings look pretty good. Father Callahan looks great. With this, it kind of looks too clean. Does that make sense? It's like when you're reading that book, you never really get the sense that Jerusalem's lot's this real tidy, clean town, you know? And it kind of looks kind of that problem I have with a lot of modern horror. It just looks really super glossy, and it looks like it's on a set. So I get that. It does actually look like it's got some creeps. I like that they didn't show Barlow in the trailer. And in the end, the only thing it's going to cost me is time, since it's going straight to HBO Max, and we already have that. So that works out fine for me. We'll add it to our spooky season watch list that we're putting together right now. I'll be talking about that over Mike's Media Reviews when we get the actual final the final list put together of all the movies we're going to watch in October. That's a big tradition with us. But I want to, with all Stephen King adaptations, guys, hope for the best, expect the worst, and you can't be disappointed. So if this turns out to be great, awesome. It's just going to continue to make me wonder, why did this not get a theatrical release? What really happened there? I would just love to hear the story of what really went on with the production for this. But October 3rd, I will be watching it for sure. Watch the trailer. I think it's actually a decent trailer outside those few nitpicks. It's one of those, right? Do I think it's going to be faithful to the source? No. They almost never are. Do I think it could be an okay movie? Sure. If they get the scares right. Sure. Hopefully they didn't show everything scary in the trailer, but not showing Barlow, I think that that was a good first step, not giving away the monster. We had our family movie night on Monday nights. That's when we do our family movie night. And it just consists of me always trying to show my kids my movies that I loved when I was their age. And so we went ahead and showed them Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now, many of you probably aren't old enough to remember when this movie came out. It was a phenomenon. This movie was massive. And I'm here to tell you, it's aged incredibly well. It really has. I think that this, at the time, like now you see digital CGI characters, cartoon characters, stuff on with live action all the time. It was still so unique at the time period. Like you would see it. I mean, they've been doing this for years at Disney, but this is the first time it looked that good. You know, it looked amazing. And with this, I can't explain to my kids why it's important, because they've had the big crossover events and all that stuff. You know, they've seen all these things, but I try to explain to them at the time, seeing Looney Tunes characters and Disney characters together on the big screen, that was something that just completely blew our mind. There's that one scene where Eddie's falling, and it's Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse on the screen together. Could not comprehend that when I was a kid, because I was like, to me, that'd be like my kids seeing a movie that has Batman and Spider-Man working together in it. That's what it was like seeing that, because Looney Tunes was still very, very prevalent when I was a kid. You know, I felt like it's kind of fallen off a little bit here in this generation. Like a lot of kids don't even know who Bugs Bunny is, and that makes me really sad. But you know, again, I think that just comes to your upbringing. Well, obviously, we're gonna pass those things down to our kids. But my kids knew who they were, but they didn't comprehend that Disney characters and Looney Tunes characters being on the screen together was like a big thing at the time. But just a charming, charming movie. It's got a ton of heart. Yeah, it has some uncomfortable moments, obviously, with Jessica Rabbit. I think that adds to the humor, but it might not land for everybody. And Christopher Lloyd in that is straight up nightmare stuff. Like him as Judge Doom is just freaky. And that's even before the big reveal at the end. That guy, wow. Because my kids had only seen him as Doc from Back to the Future. So my youngest is actually like, I think he might actually be having nightmares of Judge Doom. So I had to jump the gun on that one. But yeah, great movie. Hope you guys have seen it. If not, please watch it with your kids if you have them. I think it'll be a good time all around. That was my week, guys. What are you guys up to? I'd love to know. Why don't you drop in the comments, let me know what you're watching, what you're reading, what you listen to, what you are playing, and I will talk to you there.